Hello and welcome to Office 365 Hours. For the next hour, our panel of Microsoft MVPs will share updates from the Microsoft Message Center. Yeah, Neil, I know you're here as well, and you're not an MVP.
Thank you.
I'm coming to that point. I'll get there. But we're going to go through, we're going to talk about Microsoft Message Center updates. We're going to discuss some of the latest news coming out of Microsoft. There's been a few things happening in the past week. And then we'll spend the bulk of our time answering questions from you, the community. So let's get started with introductions. My name is Christian Buckley. Our esteemed panel, boy, I'm really dolling it up today, of Microsoft MVPs this morning are Sean. Depends. It's entirely up to you and your attitude, Mike.
Oh, all right, folks. Rundown for the last week, in talking about some of the changes with M365 and Office in general. Announcing a new service plan for Teams. Believe it or not, they're coming out with a plan called Teams Pro. So you'll see the new service plan show up. I checked this morning. It still hasn't shown up in the documentation or anywhere online, but it will be part of the M365 plans of E5, E3, A5, and A3, Business Standard, and Business Basic. So coming in mid-March 2021, and Some of us who are on the previews and stuff, that's why I looked for it this morning, but it's not there. But it'll roll out to everybody around mid-March. And with this new plan, there's going to be the capabilities integrated, what they're calling meeting intelligence, which I'm really not sure what that is, and webinar capabilities. So if that's just going to be a kind of a slimmed down live, I don't really know. Anybody have any insight on that? On Teams Pro?
Whole thing is news to me, so this is the first I'm hearing of it, Mike.
Too.
Okay.
The only thing that I can add to the party is that the latest Teams that I have on my desktop now has multiple user account capabilities. So this is a big step forward.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Excellent news.
Yeah, I discovered that last night.
Okay, so yeah. What's that, Al?
Oh, I was just going to say that. So I've got, I've now got basically two clients sitting here. One of them is on my Office 365 home subscription, and the other one is on the business client. So it's pretty neat. So far, it appears you can only have two. I would like to add a third account, but I haven't got that yet. But it's pretty cool.
Okay, Christian, I reclaim my time. So nobody really knows about the Teams Pro subscription that's coming out. We'll wait and see what happens. I'm really interested to find out what meeting intelligence means. I mean, that is such a broad statement. I don't know.
It does, and it cannot be applied to half the meetings I go to. So.
Right up there with military intelligence.
Yeah,
I heard it's just like business intelligence, but just in meetings.
I don't know. We'll wait and see what happens there. I guess again, you can share. A new one is in Teams. Share to Teams from Outlook, and I know Christian, we want to talk about this a little bit. They're going to be updating the Share to Teams capability in Outlook for Windows, Outlook for the web, and Outlook for Mac. Okay, so it's not available in Outlook Mobile yet, but they enable users to share email conversations in Teams from Outlook, including attachments to any chat or channel in any Teams client. Okay, but one of the things that you talked about, Christian, was the ability that if they have automation, right?
Yeah, the way that it's worked, that it has been working, is that if you, and I use this all the time, where there's an email thread happening of an Outlook, and it really should be over in Teams, and so I share the email thread over into that team conversation, and so that would go into, for that channel, would create a single folder. And so there, I started to see a couple of people talking about out in one of the Facebook communities around Microsoft 365, saying that, hey, that we're seeing a change here, and I don't see any updates in the message center. And hours later, after that comment was posted, that the message center update came out. So they were just ahead of the curve there, where the change had been implemented on their tenant, where it's creating individual folders for those emails. So I've not gone in and played with it and tested that, but obviously, if you've created automations and workflows that were accessing that one centralized folder, that's going to impact your automations.
Yeah. Yes, it will. As a matter of fact, if you're working, especially with like you mentioned, flows. I know a lot of folks have created flows around that.
Yep.
Okay. No other comments. Moving on. One of the new features that's also coming out is how long guests can share SharePoint Online and OneDrive documents. So some of the discussion that's been going on for years around SharePoint Online and OneDrive is ability to have external guests share, be able to share documents. Well, now they're going to be introducing a timer, basically, to set how long it can actually be accessed, which is really cool. They'll be rolling out to target release tenants, and if you're not, I don't understand what targeted release tenants are. It's pretty much the folks that sign up for the early stuff, and that'll start at the end of April. It was supposed to start in January, but they moved it up to April. And now the standard release, which is everyone else, will be in June. The thing that's going to really affect here is that when you're sharing this among like project teams that have external folks and internal folks, you're going to have to set that, right? It's not like an overall policy. It's actually set individually, and you can create a policy to revoke the guest access, but you have to define it for the period of time for, that repository of documents or whatever. So, okay, any questions? No? All righty. Makes sense. Yeah, John. Yeah, all right. And so
That's
the last
my
thing.
value add.
Yeah. The last thing on the message apps, messaging from Microsoft was the extension of suggested replies. Does anybody use suggested replies here? Do you use that where it comes up and it says, do you do that?
Yeah, especially via mobile. But I do that. Sometimes where it's not so much about the text itself, like what the response is, just like the yes or yeah sure or whatever that is. It's more of an acknowledgement, like seen it, read it. Don't want to take the extra.
I just think it's so impersonal. I really do. If you're going to do a reply, just don't click a button saying, no problem or whatever. So I personally don't use them. But
the reason for that, Mike, is we haven't gotten the NSFW suggested replies yet.
Wait until they allow you to create custom, Sean. I'm waiting for the custom where you can create custom replies, and then I'll have some in there that I definitely would use.
Hey, bleep you.
No, this could have been. This could have been a message. This could have, does this really need to be in an email?
Let me Google that for you.
Yeah, let me Google that for you.
You just want to have that. You just want to have at the top of that, like a disclaimer. I may or may not be a live response to this. I acknowledge you as a person, as a human, and I appreciate you, but I cannot respond directly currently or something.
Well, then that feature would at least have a disclaimer.
We love
unlike some web shows.
But
love disclaimers.
So I'd use that, like I would, hit tab or hit enter for whatever that automatic first response is for the first line. And then I would add something. It just saves seconds. But sometimes, especially from a mobile, as I'm sitting there doing all my texting while driving at high speeds, it's fantastic.
I was going to say the one place that I have integration with my Prius Prime, the electronic suite allows me to interface with texting. And though I don't dare text while I'm driving. If something comes in, there are like 10 pre-canned responses that I'll sometimes use. I can hit a button to say, I'm busy driving right now. I'll get back to you or whatever. In those situations, it makes perfect sense, especially if your attention is limited.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But I just use voice commands. I touching a screen or whatever. I just hit reply. I say reply to text, or reply to email, and it does it for me. So
no touching, Mike.
No touchy feeling.
Look at all this acknowledgement we have across the panel of people doing things driving that they shouldn't be doing that are unsafe. I am shocked, gentlemen. You should all be ashamed of yourselves.
Shocking.
I just don't drive anywhere now. We're in lockdown, so it's great.
So getting back to the original announcement, because since I've only got 3 minutes, I've got to get it in before
3 minutes, 10 minutes ago.
Before Christian cuts me off, is that this is rolling out for worldwide in different languages now. It was only available in English, but now it's going to have German, Italian, Portuguese, Spanish, and just for Riz, it'll have French. So you'll be able to actually change that language. So if somebody sends me an email and I want to hit one of those custom snarky replies, I can do it in German, and they won't have a clue what it says. But I can do that.
I hear we're going to get it in Canadian too. Every response is sorry.
It's Canadian. So handy when you say it that way, Mike. I'll just be behind you with a hockey stick.
I want the regional dialect. I was born and raised California, so I want it to, be
Yarkin,
slightly.
dude.
It needs to be smarmier and and occasionally
I'm going for
slip a dude.
I'm going for Boston. I want Boston. I want that because they have some of the best in Boston. So
Park your card, Bar Harbor.
yeah.
Well, Mike, any other Message Center updates that you wanted to share?
Christian, before we get off on that, I do want to bring this back to the comment about the auto text and auto responses, and I want to bring it back to a cultural conversation, because more often than not, the auto replies and the thumbs up and the thumbs down and the hearts and all these fun things you can do, it's the culture of the organization. So, is it impersonal to click a button that says thanks, talk to you later, or no, or yes, or is it impersonal to do a thumbs up? Depending on the organization, and I belong to many, which a thumbs up means I saw this and I will action this later. I'm just letting you know that I know your message has been seen, your message has been seen, and you'll get a response from me on this later. So the thumbs up, thumbs down is really the modern day version of the read receipt. You know that somebody has acknowledged and read the message.
Yeah. It's yes, no, maybe. It's depends on the culture of the organization.
Yeah.
If the organization is okay with it, and this is what my point is. I actually am making a point for those that are interested. The point is that the culture has to be adopted across the organization, and everyone has to be on the same page. So no one thinks, oh, this is rude or what have you. And especially now when everybody is separated, except for Christian, who's apparently in the office, it's important to create these dynamics and make sure that everyone's on the same page.
Yeah. Great.
I yield back to
We need the technology inept responses that are in all caps, like yelling old people.
Yeah.
Why do they have to be old people?
Have you ever gotten one of those emails? Have you ever got? I got one like 2 weeks ago.
In all caps?
Yeah, and it was a paragraph in all caps. I mean, it was a complete paragraph.
Does anyone else read it as if they're yelling? Because I just automatically do. It's like the Will Ferrell news anchor, anchorman.
Hey, Mike, is my dad messaging you too? Is he emailing you as well? Because
yeah,
it's his emails are just very loud and angry for some reason. I don't.
Nice man.
Well, and it's interesting because I remember asking someone when they sent an email like that many years ago, and I would ask them. I said, "Why did you do that?" And they're like, "That's the only way I can get people's attention. It's the only way I can get them to read the email." And I'm like, "Well, if that's the only way you can get them to read your emails, then you got other problems."
Yeah.
I prefer when people follow up 3 times and make suggestive remarks like, you must be very busy because you didn't respond to my marketing email.
I know. Leave your voicemail going, hey, did you get my email? Yeah, that sort of thing.
We're all busy.
That was one time, Sean. It was one time. I'm sorry.
This is just a gentle reminder.
It's about your car's extended warranty.
That's why I leave.
Apparently, I've won loads of free trips with Marriott.
That's not all you've won, Neil.
You know what? I just leave voicemail messages with air horn, which I keep under the desk and just get your attention. Well, let's jump to the next. We've got now, since we went over on that time. I know,
my fault.
As it happens.
We all got together and yielded to Mike, so we can continue now.
So I want to, as our weekly topic, obviously there was the news out about the Microsoft Viva. And so wanted to talk about that. I mean, obviously in, 8-9 minutes to go through and talk about everything that's in there. But I want to get kind of general thoughts around the announcement, what that is and what Microsoft is doing. So I'll open that up.
They're making a play for the work from home finally. That's my opinion of it, is that they're actually starting to try and take an enterprise application collaboration platform like Teams and make it more home use, make it hybrid, if you will, between, hey, I can use this for personal use and I can use it for work use. I think they're trying to bridge that because everybody's working from home now. Well, I shouldn't say everyone except Christian is working from home now. So it's like, all these people are getting in a different mindset. Hey, I'm working from home. Everything I use, I'm actually at home. I'm not at work. And I'm used to using this at work. Can I use it at home? Can I use it to talk to my kids? Can I use it to do this? Can I use it to do that? And I think Microsoft is trying to bridge that.
Yeah. Well, somebody made the observation that Microsoft has been talking to partners, especially for years, and to end user customer organizations about going and building solutions based off of the platforms and tools and solutions that Microsoft provides. And this is just another dog fooding exercise where they use their own technology that's readily available and built another solution on top of that. And it's kind of, I think you're right. It's driven by just what we've experienced in the last year and this work from home, movement that was that happened, and they built this out. Of course, as MVPs and as Microsoft person, and we know that there's been work for the past couple of years around each of these different areas. So it wasn't just the past year, but it certainly accelerated things. But for those that are unfamiliar, if you did not go and look into it, it wasn't just a celebration of Microsoft. Viva las Microsoft. No, it's a product. It's a new full-fledged offering called Microsoft Viva that has 4 components: connections, insights, learning, and topics. Topics is the one that I think, for those of us from the Sharepoint backgrounds, we're most keen on seeing, because this has been discussed around Project Cortex, and so that's been something that we've been waiting for a couple of years, is this idea of better surfacing content within our system. So you think about, so it's using artificial intelligence to basically go in and identify patterns in content and surface that up as these topic cards. And of course, there's a curation aspect to that. But if we're able to go in as we're building out content or writing email, and the system intelligently understands, hey, and highlights and makes a link to this content. I mentioned a project XYZ, automatically makes it a hyperlink and links to a description of what project XYZ is, other projects that are related. That's all, of course, permission trimmed, so I only see what I have access to. Other people that are working on it, being able to see the relationship of projects that are relevant to project XYZ. So, I mean, the promise of the topic cards, it's really cool. So we've been, like I said, we've been waiting for this announcement, this rollout to happen, and it's out there now. So I just went and actually turned on, still preview though, isn't it? Yeah. So I went and turned it on for my tenant, but have not played with it yet. So just did that yesterday.
For me, I saw the announcement and I watched it, and I was able to kind of tease out where this tries to move the needle in different areas. But I'm more curious as to hear what the average end user or worker thinks of this, because from my perspective, aside from the LMS component, which represents something of a novel offering in terms of Microsoft, we don't have any integrated LMS type components. I'm curious as to see and hear what people actually think Viva is, because without a guided walkthrough pointing out how this is different, it's not readily apparent, at least to me, how this differentiates it from any other type of system that's come along. Is there enough there to actually take hold and for people to start using this over something else? What does it represent as a value proposition?
I absolutely agree with you. I think that Microsoft sort of waited just enough time for people to get comfortable with Teams to drop this in labs. And the reality is that, to me, this is very much like an upgrade. Great. So, when we were on 2016, 2019 became available, and there were all these things that we could do with it. But who's going there? Who's using it? The amount of time it's going to take in a time where people are, slammed 9 to 5. of additional learning, additional culture, additional constructs to try to get to a place of, okay, this is where we want this thing to go internally. I think that organizations are a long way away from that.
Yeah, and seeing where it could go or where it might enhance the value for users.
It also kind of looks like it's set up primarily for larger organizations, people with a
enterprise,
building business with enterprises. And for me, I look at something like a bookstore that's run by a mom and pop with 2 or 3 employees, and I wonder, how is this going to work for them? Is it going to be anything that they even want to look at?
Well,
good point, Hal.
But it's I mean, I view it as an intranet solution, and there's some organizations that say we don't need to have a formal intranet. And so we don't need to have that. So yes, that is the larger organization. I mean, certainly there are examples, and there will be case studies and stories from the community. I think of smaller size organizations, 25 to 50 employees, where they're getting a lot of use out of it. But it's like anything, you should not make decisions around deploying new technology based on, hey, it's new and we've got to plug it in. It should be based on the business need and the culture of collaboration. But it's and the other thing I should say is that I think the way that it was initially positioned as well, you had HR people jumping up and down. It fits right into the things that they're driving on, and others that are outside of that space saying, why do I need this? So there's certainly there's need in larger organizations for this, but I think it's too early to make any judgment calls about the broad spectrum.
Jury will be out for a while.
Yeah,
I've had some clients asking as well who saw the announcement or heard about the announcement, probably from Mike, and they've come back and they said, okay, so we've got learning pathways. And that works for us. And it took us a long time to get people to a place with learning pathways where they're comfortable and they're learning and things are good. How does this change, differ, add, make my life better? And I don't have answers to that yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this, I know we need to move on and get over to our the main thrust of the rest of the hour here of the community questions. There was a great interview that so Duct from AvePoint and Martina Grom, RD and MVP over in Europe with Omar Shaheen from Microsoft, where they walked through and Omar demoed the different aspects of it. And they talked in detail about that. So I'll share the link out as well to that session. So it was done via Periscope, so just out on Twitter, and people can go and find it without registering and really get in depth. It's a lot of great questions from Martina and Dux to Omar around the solutions.
That sounds good.
So let's so moving on. So we did have some homework from last week, and for those that are just watching the first time, when we have questions from the community, and we instead of just speculating on the answer, we assign some homework. So there were a few items that were out there. So
at least one of them got answered, Christian.
Neil had a homework, and he responded later in the day, same day. So giving you full credit there. I'll go through this. So the question from Shinta last week was, what's happening to Stream? And now meeting videos are stored in OneDrive and no longer being stored in Stream. What are the impacts? Is this a step backwards? And it was more of a kind of a negative, like seen as a negative there. And Neil, kind of what was your response?
So just to let you know how I mined. I went to the SharePoint. We have a community call on a Wednesday afternoon for all the SharePoint fees, and I threw the question out and said, "What ideas do people have?" And these are the kind of responses that came back. So primarily compliance. So as I mentioned, OneDrive has better compliance policies than Stream right now. I think that's going to change, but OneDrive has a very, very rich compliance backing to it. And meeting content tends to be more compliance or requires more controlled compliance policies than just general training videos, for example. OneDrive obviously supports external sharing, which Stream I don't believe does, but I could be wrong there. Also, OneDrive supports transcription capabilities. It's also supported by Steam, but OneDrive obviously has that same capabilities as well. And then the one key thing that was really interesting that came out was about the auto labeling. So meeting content tends to be transient. It tends to be relevant for a short period of time. And Stream doesn't right now, as far as I'm aware, have any kind of ability to auto delete or expire content after a certain amount of time. Where OneDrive, using labeling policies, you can auto expire, auto delete, auto archive content. So it makes it more relevant in that respect. And those are the responses that came back. There could be some other things, but that's what I got back from a very broad population of the SharePoint field in Microsoft.
Crowdsourcing, awesome.
Crowdsourcing, yes.
Well, awesome. Well, of the other homework, so Hal had something, Sean had something, Eric had something. I don't know who has the responses that wants to. Anybody not ready to discuss their homework? Okay, so let's plow through. Hal, so you had a question from Robin saying, I'm using Windows 10, Microsoft Office 2019, and full Teams paid subscription. How do I get meetings created in Outlook 2019 to show in the Teams calendar? Any help gratefully received. So what'd you find out?
Well, that's courtesy of a plugin. And the Teams client, when you install it, adds a plugin to Outlook. It appears in the under Outlook's add-ins. You can check that by going to File Options Add-ins, and it's called the Microsoft Teams Meeting Add-in for Microsoft Office. So, first of all, if you've got that, the suggestions that I found were to test this out, try using Outlook Web Access, that's, of course, the web version of Outlook, and create a meeting and see if it appears in the web version of Teams. It should. The desktop client itself, to troubleshoot that, thing that you need to do is, first of all, verify that you have the latest versions of both Outlook and Teams. And that, of course, is always entertaining because they update things quite frequently. The other is cleaning the Teams cache and trying starting Outlook in safe mode and see if any of those work. If you need help clearing the Teams cache, I have, and I sent off to Christian, a link to an answers post which has instructions on how to get in, which folders need to be cleaned, and where they are. And further documentation for the actual plugin itself, I also included a link to docs.microsoft.com that gives you the full layout of what it is, where it goes, how it works, and how to look at it and work on it.
And I would just throw this out there
for it and all that good stuff.
And to the panel as well, if there is a link, put it over in our meeting chat here, and so that in post-production we can make sure to add that to the transcript. And for those that weren't aware, so of course the recordings and all these that are available out through the AvePoint profile, but we also have a blog post that will come out a day and a half later that has the full transcript of our discussion, as well as any of the links that we share within the chat, so we can capture it there. So. Yeah, while it's nice that you mentioned me, like I sent it to Christian, nothing will get done with that. You got to, do the work, paste the link over where we can share it out. Sorry.
Links are pasted.
Yeah, thank you.
We know.
All right, I know. So Sean, so you had a question from Carolyn last week. Asked, in Teams for SharePoint Online, the default time zone is set for Pacific. If you add a calendar app and have it connect to Outlook, if you're in a different time zone, and the time in the Teams calendar, channel not main, will show Pacific time, not your time. So how do you change that?
Well, in SharePoint on-prem, I had mentioned that web application controlled default time zone for any site that was created within it. With SharePoint Online, of course, we don't have access to the web application since we're a multi-tenant environment. So we've got to go directly into the SharePoint site in question for an existing site. And I'm going to post the link on change regional settings for a site. And this is where you can go into site administration. There's a regional settings option, and right there is the time zone that is set up or established for the site that's existing. If you're creating a new site, you have creation time control of this, And I'm now posting a link to creating a new site in the SharePoint Admin Center. If you expand all the advanced options, the time zone for the site is there to specify. It does default to Pacific because Microsoft, but you can change it to anything you want. And I, will typically, when I create a new site, try to get in there and change it to Eastern Standard Time, which is where I'm at.
Excellent. Thank you. And finally, Mr. Riz, Hipster Santa. So there's a question from Pam. Is there any way to tell who created a list or library in a SharePoint site? I'm looking through the settings and I cannot find anywhere where it shows who created what.
I'm sorry. This is a question that we get every other week, if not every week.
Well, this is homework from last week's question, so it's exactly the question that was asked last week.
Yeah.
Just technically, Mike. I'm just, I'm not nitpicking.
And Mike, what's the short answer here? I want to make sure we're aligned.
No.
Yeah, that is correct.
No.
This is a short answer, but I'm going to make it long because I yielded my time previously and I want it back.
All right.
The answer is no. However, there are two future-looking workarounds you can play around with. One is, and I'll post the links because Christian won't do it. One is to create a flow to create and add your list, and that will give you the owner/creator of the flow, and then you'll have some traceability there. The other is to start to play around with breaking permissions, which of course nobody on this panel will recommend doing. But if you want to start playing with that, you may find some luck there. But I'll post the link.
Speak for yourself.
It's job security to break permissions and to do damage every once in a while, and then you've got to go clean it. It's the digging a ditch and filling it back in again. It's awesome.
Like I said, there's nobody on this panel who will recommend doing that.
No, not at all. I will say one thing though to add to that. There is if you use PowerShell and connect to the site and the list, splist.author call will show you who created the list.
Excellent.
So that's basically an extended no.
Yes.
Right. Well,
No
great
description.
cleanup, everybody, on homework from last week. Now let's dig into this week's questions. So we'll get through as many as we can here that come from the community.
Oh wait,
And
we're
so
doing
these
this
are-
again?
Yeah, that was just the
wow.
homework. That was last week's.
That's what we do here.
Just constantly cleaning up after ourselves, Sean. All right.
Just for that-
It's a, what
just
have
for
you done
that-
for me lately? Kind
Just
of
for
thing.
that, Sean gets a telemetry question. He
Of
gets
course.
he
I know.
gets a telephony question
Last five
that deals with the
questions will be
telemetry
all-
coming out of telephony that needs to be analyzed. Sorry, Sean.
And just everyone else will turn off their cameras. It'll be the Sean Show talking telecom. Yeah.
But don't actually do that because you'll break the
I know.
stream. Okay.
I know.
Don't cross the streams, guys. Please.
If we do that, then what's his name again? Zool or the bad guy? Then if you
It would be
break the
bad.
stream, Zool wins. So we don't want that. All right. So we're going to jump over to the community questions. Our last segment, the remainder of our time, we'll get through as many of these as possible. David asks, I manage a team that was 3 people. 1 left the organization. How many are left? That's not the question.
Is he heading to
advanced
Philadelphia at 50 miles an hour?
math. No one said there would be actual math today. No.
What color is the conductor's hat? I always wondered.
I removed her from the team, but when I assign work in Planner, the removed person still shows as an option to assign work to. Is there a way to remove her from the choices?
Well, you only removed her from Teams. Is she actually in Active Directory? Is she in?
Yep.
Because you only removed her from one aspect of. I guess again, more information in terms of, is this actually an organization that uses Active Directory? Is this an organization that just has you individual teams that you get the free teams and you just spin it up for your group? How, because if she is an object in Active Directory, she's going to show up. She's going to continue to show up
Until that's cleaned up.
until that's cleaned up.
Or certainly until you pay her.
There was a similar question that's right. She could make a claim in court for unpaid. It was like salary. I was there. Now, there was a similar question where somebody was saying that why is it I go in and I'm finding, I think it was Outlook, not in Teams, but I'm finding the name of my father who's deceased from like 8 years ago, but is showing up as an option, like I'm finding it, to send a message to. And it was kind of a similar question. It's like, look, there's your father was in the system that you sent messages to as part of what was pulled over from Outlook, and so it's visible. So that entity that exists within the system. It's the ghost in the shell, Sean.
That's creepy, man. That's just creepy.
But it's a straight face. You can always just go to her or him and say, "Listen, your dad's alive."
Yeah, that's the answer. Thank you, Eric. But that's typically the response is that person is still in Azure AD, needs to be cleaned out of the system. So, all right.
You'll also have that user cached as well in your local system, right? Especially for email.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it just takes time. So once they're cleared out of Azure, and then you go and do that, just like as you're selecting an email in Outlook and that email doesn't exist anymore, you hit the little X mark, to delete that entry. If they're still in AD, then it's just going to find itself again or in the history. And so it will take some time to clear out that cache. Question number 2, Basil says, can I use Power Apps to upload a spreadsheet or connect to a spreadsheet in a SharePoint library, not as a data source, and then pick up a couple of sheets in the workbook and send that to one or more selected accounts taken from a SharePoint list, preferably in PDF format? I've been breaking my brains on this one and was not able to find anything similar.
0 for 6. Next question, please.
I would ask Todd Baginski or Shane Young or one of the Power Apps folks about that. That's a very specific question. And
let me. I will take this as homework and do that. Let me reach out to
Teabag or Shane.
Wow.
I won't call him that.
He goes by that.
He doesn't mind. Doesn't mind at all.
Okay. Well, yeah, I was going to reach out to Todd and Christina, same team, and I'm sure they'll be able to answer that. And then I'll report back next week. All right. Question number 3. Suresh says, in order to apply retention labels on document libraries and content types in SharePoint Online, requires E5 licenses in Microsoft 365 as per Microsoft website. Can anyone please clarify if all the users who will be accessing the document libraries also require E5 licenses, or just the admin user who will be configuring the retention label in Security and Compliance Center require those licenses?
No oblo licensing.
No one's jumping into it. I'm going to go with, from best recollection, and I see Mike typing away, so he might correct me, which is all good. Administrator E5, users E3.
Yeah, I will
believe that is correct.
Yeah.
But I'll also volunteer for homework on this one, if you want me to.
No, I think that is the answer.
I think it's the answer.
If you'd like to clarify, if you have nothing going on for the rest of the week and would like to expand on it, I can assign that to you. But I think that's the answer.
I think it's right. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Question number 4. Yajuta says, I have created a flow and Power App for a UAT or user acceptance testing SharePoint site. Now I need to move it into production. What's the best way of doing that? All right, our developer friends here on the panel, stumped by proper environment management.
The last time I checked, and I'll admit that this has been a while ago, there was no automated way to move flows, Power Automates around. I know that it exists in a format under the hood, and I'm trying to think of the dude who was like Mr. Flow. I'll track this down, but there was a tool that was written that would export it as either XML or JSON object or something that would then allow you to port it around. Now, granted, the problem with a flow is there are it's a marriage of kind of a script and what you put together in terms of a flow, but there are also placeholders for environmental specific data that gets put into that. And so what you need to do is, of course, get the scriptable portion of it replicated. And I know people who will go ahead and just put that in manually, which is not really a great way to do things. But this tool would allow you to take the scriptable portion out of one environment into another, but then you would have to probably touch it to replace the placeholders with the appropriate data in your new location. But I can at least, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he put together that tool that will export it and give you access to it. I'll figure out what that is and I'll take that as homework.
Okay, great. I've got that. Got that down. All right, let's jump to question number 5. Justice asks, I have a Teams channel I created, and when I edit this channel and try to add a description to the channel, it gives me an error message. Anyone know how to fix this? So why is it if you create the channel and you go and try to edit the channel that you created, you're getting an error message? So sometimes, folks, you know, I'm not trying just to stump the panel with these questions. Like we are, you know, we're looking at, these are raw questions that are coming from various online communities in Microsoft Tech community, from various Facebook communities that we're members of. And some of them, like this one, had no response. There was no other dialogue happening around that. And I like that sometimes because
I don't like that.
Christian appreciates quiet on his webcasts.
That's right.
Yeah.
Just you know, so anyway. So sometimes it just stumps. This is a great example of where I think we need to ask some other questions to the individual to find out more about their profile, about, you know, what else they're trying to do, and but it's yeah. Any thoughts as to why they might be experiencing that?
Something broke. Delete it. Start over.
Something broke.
We had this happen last week where something broke.
Have you rebooted?
Yes. Is it powered into the wall?
Or wait long enough. If you're trying to change it right away, there's provisioning that happens under the hood that if you try to go too quickly, things may not have gone through the full provisioning cycle. So something like that. That's
actually the most common thing that I've experienced, where I've just kind of tuned myself now, where if I try to do something, I realize that, you know, or even if I'm experiencing a weird, you know, UX visuals, something has changed on there, where I say, you know, there might be an update that's happening in real time that is not allowing me to go and take that other action, and I'll wait a few minutes, go back in, and I'm able to do that. And I think to your point, Sean, that might be the case here. There's the standby of have you tried turning it off and on again, logging back in. I don't think there's anything, if you're able to create the channel, you know, I would assume that you'd be able to edit that channel, so it couldn't be another permissions issue that allows you to create but not edit.
As long as you're in with the same account.
Right.
So I had this happen to me last week where I created the channel and I added a bunch of documents and a bunch of fun things, and I went to add planner to do tasks, whatever you want to call that app now, and I added it in, and as soon as it committed to the top of the menu bar, but as soon as I tried to access it, I got this guy. You guys know this guy? The one that says, whatever you're looking for isn't here. So I got that, and it wouldn't let me do anything. It wouldn't let me add anything into the actual plan, and whatever I did, restarted, rebooted, whatever, nothing did anything. No success. So it was either, all right, do I spend a few days trying to fix this, or do I just start over, create a new channel? And that's what I did. Now, I didn't delete the first one. I created a new channel, did everything I wanted to do. It allowed me no changes, no logins, logouts, nothing. Everything was happy. And then once I was happy with my path, no pun intended, I just went back and deleted the first one, and life was good.
So we've not talked about the possibility of sun flares, solar flares.
Well,
this time around, but we've talked about them before, sure.
Yeah, or ghosts, or
yeah. Well, I was going to mention, have they cleared their cache? Because seems that clearing your cache solves a lot of problems.
Rebuild the machine.
Yeah. Reinstall Windows 10 recovery mode.
Are you still running IE 11?
No, are you still
IE7.
running IE 8?
Yeah. Hopefully there was something in there that was helpful, but I again, that's my normal reaction, Eric. The same that you did is to go and recreate that thing, and even after you successfully recreated that, were you able to go back? Did you attempt to go back in and try it again, and still were not able to? Okay,
I did, and it wasn't happy. Whatever happened along the way to break it, it was broken, and that was it.
See, what really stinks about that, Eric, is that you took a task that should have taken about 5 seconds and turned it into a task that took 5 minutes.
Yeah,
kind of like my answer. I mean, it's very yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's just jump to the next one. Number 6, Saray asks, I tied up an Excel or created Excel on. So some of this is I think this one was the benefit of translation capabilities here. So an Excel on Microsoft Teams that's on SharePoint. In Excel, I have 8 tabs for 8 countries. My boss wants to see the last user who edited the file in any cell and the date with the time. Can you help me with how I can do this? In a normal Excel, I can work with options or VBA code, but in Excel in the cloud, so Excel Online, unless I know something wrong, I'm not able to do it.
I don't know if they have revision control in Excel in the cloud. I don't even know.
Well, it would happen at the file level, but they're looking for specific cells.
Not at the tab level or cell level.
Yeah, within the document.
I guess I'm thinking of review and comment, because anything you put in there is recorded. If you're looking at the review pane, anything that's done in there is shown. But never mind.
We talked about there's another conversation. I remember having this. It's real, people. It wasn't a dream. Where somebody had talked about, wouldn't it be awesome to be able to see the changes, almost like the timeline capability for Windows Timeline, to be able to drag that in an application with changes that happened and kind of scroll back and through and see it, move. So, Microsoft, when are you coming out with that?
Yeah, as soon as we have the necessary data structures to capture and hold that information, because it's not surfaced at the level they want it right now.
Well, I guess I just wasn't aware that the desktop application of Excel had that cell level history, change history. I'm, as all of you, familiar with the file history, but not at the cell level.
Well, I can honestly see, they're talking about VBA, so Visual Basic for Applications. If you want to run that, that's of course going to trip every security alarm in the cloud as possible. But it wouldn't be hard to, on any cell edit, to log that change to a hidden sheet or something. So I can see where it could be created and maintained on the workstation level where you're running that VBA code, but you're not going to be able to get that out in the cloud.
Okay.
Bach.
All right. Let's jump to question number 7. So we've got about 7-8 minutes left. Netta says, hi, I'm trying to set up a workflow to copy a site page from my site pages library to a subfolder within the same library based on the page metadata. So far, unsuccessfully. Can this be done using Power Automate?
So the one thing that I don't know that everyone understands is that folders in SharePoint are list items themselves, and it's possible to display content in a SharePoint list that has folders in a flattened structure, irrespective of the folders. The relationship is really kind of complex, and I can point to a blog post I did where I pointed out all the different relationships between list items and folders and the types of data they track. The reason I'm bringing this up is because if you're trying to copy a page to a subfolder, you're making a copy of a page functionally to a copy of itself in the same list. There's not a separate structure for that subfolder, and that will, I can see a cut and a paste, but a copy and a paste that maintains everything looking the same as the original, you're probably going to run afoul of something. And I suspect that that's, the experience you're having is you can get it, but it maybe wants to rename it. If it'll even copy it at all, I'm not sure. But you need to understand that, that subfolder, if you move it to a different list, you're fine. But the subfolder in the same list, you think subfolder, but SharePoint, they're all list items, including the folders themselves. So.
All right.
I'll send a link to my blog post that might help with this.
Okay. While you're doing that, we'll jump to the next question. Iman says, I created a SharePoint list which has an image field as a thumbnail. When I try to create a Power App associated to the list, all fields appear in Power Apps, galleries, and forms, except that image field. Why is that? I guess my first question is, does Power Apps, does it support thumbnails?
I don't do a lot of work with Power Apps.
Don't know. Nope, I don't work with them.
I will, let me.
When you're talking to Teabag, ask him.
Yes, that's right. So I'll ask Tom and Christina.
It's also interesting because thumbnails are stored in a completely different place to the rest of the list, right? There's like an assets library. Assuming it's that, to use that context, I know they have an initial assets library. So I guess maybe it could be a fact that they're not part of the actual list.
Yep.
That's why they're not coming through. I don't know. I'm speculating.
Yeah, I think that's the right answer, but I'll try and get a fuller, more robust answer to that question from.
And if they're rendition generated by SharePoint's rendition service, they actually are maintained. The rendition is maintained in the blob cache. It doesn't actually exist in a list. Mm-hmm. So
true.
All right, this may be our last question, time-wise here. Raiden asks, I've granted the access, so edit, design, contribute, to some of my colleagues in my OneDrive. When I open the drive at the website, they can see my folder under Shared With Me tab on their account. Unfortunately, the view is not the same as in the phone via Android. So how can I ensure that what they see from, they can see the same thing from the phone, because they are working from my folder. They're sharing files through WhatsApp. Well, what's up with that? So he's tried options. So he's tried searching by using Discover button, but can't, giving the link access at WhatsApp. Hopefully they'll reappear apps OneDrive when we want to open the link, reinstall the apps on the phone, search at the libraries tab, and so they're not able to.
So the list view comes into play here, I think. Are they using the default list view, or are they having a special view that's been assigned as because I know a lot of things like, at least in web parts, and I don't know that this is specifically the case here, but when something goes to display content out of SharePoint, or we think OneDrive or whatnot, it's going to grab whatever the default view is to show that. And if there's a non-default view in place, normally, I'm not sure if they might be seeing whatever is displayed, the columns and whatnot, through the default view. So I would suggest, if nothing else, and this is just a wild guess, play around with the views a little bit to see what that does for you and change default views.
So does everybody see what happened here? Is I got Sean to talk about what is essentially a telephony question, because it's what's unique, what's different about this through Android. And so I'm not familiar.
You're reaching there, dude. You're really reaching.
Well, it's like the question there is around. I know it's not exactly like the telephony problem, but is there
not in any way, shape, or form?
I'm not familiar. Well, so the question is, why can't you get the same view from Android? I don't know what might be unique, what's supported and not supported through the app through Android. I mean, so that would be the first thing to go and find out if there are variations in the solution.
Yeah.
And limitations that are on Android.
But functionally speaking, you should have access to the same data because that's permission structures, which is invariant. But the views and what the different applications are capable of does play in here. And that's where my suggestion with views went. But the bigger point that Christian made is there's capabilities issues here potentially as well.
Yep. Well, gentlemen, that is time here for today for the questions. So we'll push the next question. So for those that are keeping track, so we are here every Wednesday morning at the same time for an hour. We'll be back again this evening for our Asia Pacific call. So we'll do it all again. All new content. We don't repeat anything. This isn't just a replay. It's live. And so we'll go through, and we've got a couple homework items from last week's APAC call, and we'll have 10 more questions that we'll try and get through from the community. So hopefully you can join us there. It's at 5 p.m. Pacific every Wednesday. And so
tonight our gawking expressions and uncertainty and blank looks will be based on all new questions and data.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thank you everybody for joining, and we'll see you again. If you're just joining for this EMEA version, North American EMEA version, we'll see you next week. But otherwise, we'll see you tonight in the next broadcast. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Same back channel. Catch you later.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.